What's up, Panda dudes? Peter from Panda here. Hey, I've got something to show you today. And it's a Shinola. And I don't have it sit in front of me because it's already on my wrist. And the reason it's already on my wrist is that this is a watch that I've actually been wearing around quite a bit already. And it is the Shinola Canfield in 43 millimeters. But what makes this one interesting over the one I already showed you is that this is the chronograph. So it uses that ARGONITE 5021 movement, and I really like this. And this is actually turned into my daily wear and will probably continue to be my daily wear for a little while here now. So I thought I'd just kind of give you a tour of it and let you know what I think of it, because there's some stuff that you should know. First of all, I've said this in my other video that it's not unlike the Runwell. It has a lot of the same design elements, but everything about the Canfield versus the Runwell is just kind of more refined, kind of scaled down, toned down, miniaturized a little bit. And for a 43 millimeter case, you really get kind of a 47 millimeter Runwell experience, right? So the bezel's thinner, it's still polished stainless steel. This is a top-loaded design, which the construction of it is a little bit different, but that allows you to kind of have a bigger dial. In actuality, I wouldn't be surprised if this dial is the same size as the ones on the 47 millimeters, even though it's 4 millimeters short or smaller. It has this coin edge on this upper half of the two-piece, or actually maybe three-piece dial, because I believe this back piece here is what comes off in order to do your battery maintenance on it. I actually think that the lugs, I'm not entirely sure, are held into place by this case, and maybe even a part of the case below. On the Runwell, when you take the back off, the lugs and the strap and everything comes with it. So I think that's a little bit different. But obviously they look very similar. The case is rounded. It has a curved sapphire crystal. It's just everything about it is pretty nice. Now, a couple things I will tell you is that the crystal has a little bit of elevation over the case itself. You can kind of see it here. It's maybe a little hard to tell, but you know, it sits like just a millimeter above that case, so you have to be careful if you hit anything. I do have some scratches where I've, you know, brushed it up against stuff. Everything about it is in pretty nice shape. The crystal isn't chipped or anything like that. The pushers are polished too, and they're just plain and rounded. Everything's rounded, and so that the metal has a nice finish. Nothing sharp. You don't really have any uncomfortable edges. I can tell you that versus the Runwell, it looks very similar with the lugs, but the lugs are a little thinner. This is only a 20 millimeter band, and I really like this black leather. It's kind of just a traditional, you know, authentic leather texture, but this black and white is really nice. And because of the black numerals on the watch and kind of the black elements here, I think it really has a nice complementary look. And I just, for me, and this is personal preference, but I love chronographs because you get the extra subdials, you get the detail in the dial. It just makes the watch look a little busier, a little more complex, a little more advanced, and I love all that. So you may not, you may like it simpler. That's to each his own. That's just a preference thing, but I love the way the chronographs look. And especially on this line of chronograph, you know, the subdials aren't bordered with a, you know, like a chrome bezel or anything like that. They're just white. They're kind of sunk into the dial a little bit, so they're kind of subtle, you know. They don't scream, look at me with all of these really highlighted subdials, kind of like the Citizen Pro Masters. This is a little more subtle. You just have a little detail. And again, in the dial versus the Runwell, the devil's in the details. All of the hour markers and minute markers are a little smaller. The numbers are a little smaller. Even on the Runwell that I have, that Shinola lightning bolt is in orange, kind of regardless of the color of the dial that you have. Here, all of the printing is in black. And in some ways, I really like that. And I like that more because it's kind of consistent and uniform and makes it look pretty cool. Now, in some ways, I miss kind of that orange Shinola lightning bolt like it is here on the buckle, on this polished buckle end. But on here, I think it's perfect to do everything in black. Now, A couple of things that I'll also point out on the dial before we kind of go into the functionality of it and explore that is, I mentioned this on the other Canfield that I have, is that it appears to me that the numerals are applied. So it might be a little hard to see here, but they are kind of like cut out black blocks that appear to be applied and look like they have depth and are sitting on the dial, but definitely stick out and don't look like they're pressed into the dial or manufactured as a part of it, which is kind of nice. Everything else looks like it's printed on except for the hour markers. There's a little bit of kind of luminescent paint there, and there also is Loom in the center of the hands here, which are diamond cut, polished. You know, they're really nice looking. They're nice and long. They're uniform width all the way across, so it's really easy to read. I think it doesn't try too hard to be too artsy or formal or anything like that. It's just nice and utilitarian and useful. And then the Loom is actually really easy to see, especially when this thing is just charged up. As you might have seen in there, you could actually see some of the non-luminescent parts of the dial. Now, as the Loom kind of wears out in the darkness, it really kind of tones down, but especially if you go from a bright light area into a dark light area, like into a movie theater or something, the Loom on this is pretty awesome. Now, it's a new watch, so all of this is, you know, going to be kind of as, you know, in a like new state, and it's going to be as potent as it ever will be. A couple other things here is that on these Canfields, a lot of them have this date window here, and on this white dial, the date window is also the date dial is white and the number is black, so it blends in really well. I've also noticed that on the black dial watches, the date wheel is black and then the number is in white. So they do color match those. Now, the only other one, the version that I saw that they color matched is kind of that cream colored dial. And I believe the date window on that is also color matched. But on the rest of the colored dials, they are not. And so they're either just black usually or white. So, you know, kind of keep that in mind if you really are anal about wanting your date to be color matched to the dial. There's only a few of the Canfields that do that. As you can see here, this subdial right there is ticking seconds, both black hands. And that's because the main needle, second hands here, is the stopwatch. And so these are the pushers that activate that. And you can start that stopwatch by pressing this pusher right up there. And now as that'll run, this other subdial will keep the minutes of it. So as it goes all the way around back to 12, you'll tick off 1 minute here, 10 up to 5, 10, 20, and 30 minutes. I'm just going to stop it here because we're not going to wait that long. But I have tried it and it works. And then this is the reset. So everything will wind all the way back to the top. If that had timed off a few minutes, that would reset there as well. Now let's take a look at the function of this Argonite 5021. And here is the crown. It's a nice crown, first of all. Machined logo. Really easy to manipulate. Not a screw-in crown. As you can see, it's floating there free. If we pull it out to that first stop and turn the wheel, you can see that is advancing the date. Right there. Let's do it again. Boom. Okay? And then if I pull it out to a second position, we have hacking seconds right there. So that stopped. And now we can go ahead and set the time to whatever we want. Right? So that's really all that it takes. And you just push back in, seconds start to run off again, and you are back in business. Now, a couple of things that I will mention about this, some likes and dislikes. First of all, I like the fact that it's 43 millimeters. It's not a size that I would generally say, oh, that's my size. 44 is kind of my perfect sweet spot watch. But 43, because of the kind of the thickness of the case and how, you know, relatively chunky it is, it feels more substantial. And from a feel, if I were to cover it up and hold it, this feels like a decent watch. It has nice weight, nice density. I don't think it feels delicate at all. And in fact, if you get this thinking that it's a nice small watch, you might be surprised about how how heavy and thick it is. That being said, for 43 millimeters, it feels and looks substantial. What helps that a little bit is that white dial. So the brighter the color, the bigger a watch will look to you because it's brighter. If you want it to look a little smaller, go with a black dial, which I have, and those are nice too. The second thing that is really nice about it is because of that size, it's pretty easy to slip under a cuff. Now that's kind of been a thing that has hurt me a little bit, not hurt me, but is a problem I've had a little bit with the 47 millimeter Runwells, is that I usually wear those when I'm wearing short sleeves because they don't look like an oversized watch, but they kind of behave like one, and they can be a little hard to tuck under, especially like an Oxford shirt cuff where you don't have any adjustability. It's not a stretchy fabric or anything like that. So those can be a little tough if you wear a lot of dress shirts. And the nice thing is this slips under that really, really well. And it looks great. This absolutely looks perfect in a professional setting. It's got a lot of detail. It is actually different enough from the other Shinolas that at a glance, people might be able to see the Shinola DNA, as Vickers says, kissing cousins. Oh, isn't that the best kind of cousin? But it has a lot of, like I said, a lot more subtlety, and so it kind of looks, even to me, like a lot of kind of more traditional watches like IWC and some of those like that. Now, one of the things that I might change or kind of doesn't work as well for me, because I have bigger wrists, about a 7, and then I like to wear my watch just a little bit loose. I have had a little bit of an issue with how much band there is. So as you can see here, I have this pretty much where I would wear it on a daily basis. It slides a little bit. It's certainly not loose like a bracelet or anything like that. But for me, you can see I only have 2 more holes on the wristband that I could use. And not that I would need them, but usually I like to have a little bit more band across here. And actually, so what I would have done is maybe extended both of these ends of the band like a 1/4 inch, and that would actually, for me, center up the buckle a little bit better. And I tried this, kind of tightened it up to where I think you would generally want it to put that buckle right in the middle of my wrist. Well, it's not uncomfortably tight, but it's just a little tighter than I would wear on a day-to-day basis. So for me, again, obviously I could replace the band, which I do on a lot of watches, but this is a perfectly good band. It's nicer than a lot of watches come with standard, and the leather is really soft and comfortable, but it's just a smidge too short. But from the reverse side here, you can't tell, and it looks fine, and no one can tell that I'm bugged that there's a 1/4 inch of a band that I would like to have in addition to it. So I really like it. The Canfield from Shinola has kind of shown me that Shinola has grown up a little bit. In some of the early pictures of the different watch designs that I saw when Shinola kind of was getting news, I saw what ended up becoming apparently the Canfield, and I just liked the smaller numerals and the detail in it, and it was like, where's that watch? And for years I thought, oh, they must have scrapped it. So I was really excited to see this watch finally make it out there, because to me it's a really it's almost a perfect watch in a lot of ways. And like I said, it's my daily wear because it's a watch that I know can take some abuse, because my Shinolas have, and it's not super expensive. So if I do some damage to it, I'm not doing damage to a rare watch, and secondly, it just really fits all occasions. So check it out. If you're wondering how much they cost, the Canfield in the chrono form like this was $850. I think they go up to like $1,150 if you want like the alligator leather strap, something like that. So you have a bit of a range. And there's also one other Canfield that I will pitch here, and that's a special one. It's a limited edition. It's called the Cannonball, and it has to do with a tribute to the old railroads, in particular one line, I believe. And that's pretty cool. It's a Canfield with a subset seconds hand, but it's not a chronograph, but it has a little bit of different dial design, and so it's really cool. That's $1,000. I still believe they're available on the Shinola website, so if you were looking for something that's special from Shinola in the limited edition category, you might want to check that out, the Canfield Cannonball. So, Peter Von Panda with my new daily wear, the Canfield. Out!